So we got to watch right here. We got to listen to a podcast from Elle Duncan, who I actually don't have that much of a problem with Elle Duncan in general. But we got to hear her podcast, her last podcast, 3 weeks after Caitlin Clark got knocked out of the playoffs, complaining about people covering Caitlin Clark and not covering other WNBA players. Which is hilarious. That's my favorite part about all this, is that, and I love how she got clapback from both other people. She got clapback for both other people, in the podcast. And they were basically saying, we do the same thing. And that's the thing where it's like, I have no issue, with people talking about Caitlin Clark for clicks. Heck, I do it as much as anybody. There is another side of an issue when the conversation about Caitlin Clark is solely to the detriment of the entire league. And I don't mean to the detriment of the players. I think there's a conversation to be had that a lot of the actions of the other players is going to be long-term to the detriment of the league. But I don't see there being a point in the conversation, of pointing out, even though, say, the finals are going to have record viewership for the finals, pointing out that they have less viewers than Caitlin Clark's game. Pointing out Caitlin Clark is bigger than the league is fine, but using that as a WNBA is nothing without Caitlin Clark point isn't one, it's not necessarily true. Obviously, she's bigger than the league, but it's also, not productive in any way. So I get complaining about those type of, arguments, but at the same time, we're listening to Elle Duncan here say some of the dumbest stuff I've heard. And by the way, this was an entire podcast, almost all of it about Caitlin Clark, while talking about how we need to stop talking about Caitlin Clark. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And one thing we'll say about this podcast is, I actually don't think that it's some of the narratives have been too bad, but I do think that, you can't necessarily be this, especially when it comes to that. Obviously, you can try to have it's not out the crazy thing in the world thinking you have a moral superior, you have some sort of moral superiority to the people that are literally just racist using Caitlin Clark for that. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them on this platform. There's a lot of them in other places. So I understand that. But it's the fact is that one thing she said is one of the biggest problems with the WNBA media. It is, where is it here? This point right here, it actually isn't even on her podcast. This is, I'll say it, and this is one of the bigger problems. And it's only being called out one way, but it's both ways. That's the problem, is that everything that has been called out one way can be called out in the other way.
Basketball on the college level, on the professional level, and for many years, you guys said you wanted some more attention. Well, how you like it now?
This is finally having a home and a backyard big enough to entertain more people, and then the new people that show up to the party show up with pitchforks, and you're like, ooh, never mind, this was bad, I should have cured.
It's the worst part is that it's literally in the thousands. It's in the thousands, the bad fans. The new good fans are in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. The bad fans are in the thousands. But again, focusing on the bad fans, and look, I'm gonna say the same. I've done the same thing. When I focus on the crazy Sky fans and say Sky fans, that's something that if you ask, if you're looking back on myself for the videos, that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is that on the one hand, I've been it's not all Fever fans, painting it as Fever fans is doing a bad thing. And I've probably done, I've done the same things as Sky fans, which I'm wrong. I'll admit I was wrong to have done that. And obviously, the problem is that when you continue that narrative both ways, it just paints the entire fan base in a bad light, which is not going to be good for the league long term.
Curate this a little better. The second that you show love to anybody not named Caitlin Clark, you are part of, some constituency that's trying to keep her contributions at a minimum, and you're racist.
That's not, the problem is that there are very specific people that are making sure as hell they don't talk about Caitlin Clark. You've got the Trendy Hoop Stars page where they will come up with a fact. They will have a stat that Caitlin Clark has. And then they will say, they will use on X% shooting in less than X minutes. And it was I remember one of them was Kate scored over 20 points in under 30 minutes as a rookie. And I'm and they only had 4. And I'm But like Caitlin Clark, she plays over 30 minutes every game. That's the dumbest stat. Like every single stat that page, it's actually funny how creative they get to make sure Caitlin Clark isn't mentioned. That is what people are complaining about. Cheryl Swoops treating Caitlin Clark like Lord Voldemort. That's what people are complaining about. No one's complaining about people saying Aja Wilson had an unbelievable season. Heck, everyone loves Nafisa Collier. Ironically, the Aja fans are the only people who dislike Fee Collier. Fee's a baller. No one has a problem with Fee. No one has a problem with Arike. Arike's a baller. Like, you can talk about other people, but the problem is that there is bad faith journalism. And by the way, there's bad faith, whether it's journalism or social media, in the opposite way as well, trying to put Caitlin Clark in the conversation, especially at a time where she didn't belong to them. I think Caitlin Clark belongs in that top-tier conversation now. I don't think she did coming into the league. But that's the thing. That's the thing. Where it's like, you can be wrong saying she was 100 times better than every WNBA player in college, because we saw that there was an adjustment period. The adjustment period was a lot quicker than people thought about, but there was an adjustment period. So obviously, saying something like that, but like, people are angry when there's like non-basketball arguments. It's like we saw in a WNBA space, people saying Angel Reese is Rookie of the Year because, you know, she's got that aura, or her pre-game fits are better. In an actual WNBA sponsored space, with some voters in the space making these, some actual, in fairness, none of them did vote for Angel Reese in the end, but some actual voters talking about how Angel Reese is better pre-game fits.
And you're, you know, we get a lot of that. It's no wonder that the W coverage is all black women, because you're all in it together to try to keep her down. It's just, you kind of
like, that is not a common take either. Again, it might be a common take with troll, but I don't, who's complaining about like Chinea Nwumeke? I think some of the problem is that when it's nothing to do with that. It's giving bad faith. It's giving like people that don't want to talk about basketball. Like, I've got no issue like with Andrea Carter, even if I don't agree with everything she says. Andrea Carter does a good job. Chinea Nwumeke is great. Candace Parker, anytime she was on NBA on TNT, was great. Like, it's not about that. It's about the wrong people. Like, there are bad actors in there. There are a lot of bad actors. Swoop's been as bad as it gets.
Damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Instead of hot takes that are like, Breanna Stewart's never going to win another championship, or Nafisa Collier is better than Maya Moore. Like, instead of those kinds of hot takes, the hot takes solely and explicitly surround all of these black women versus Caitlin Clark. And to have someone come in who has been amazing for the game, for the sport, of her own volition, worked really hard in Caitlin Clark, but to have this group of people come in and immediately invalidate the contributions of all of these women before her simply because they don't know.
I'm sorry, but like, we have NBA players invalidating the contributions of players in the 90s and nobody gives a damn. I'm sorry. We're done with the 90s. Was it like an actual thing in NBA media? Why is that an issue? Why is it an issue? What's wrong with saying there's an advancement in the game of basketball that has been made, like, especially through these rookies and these players coming up? Like, we're seeing what's happening with Juju. We're seeing what's happening with these players. It's a good thing. Yes, it's being led by Caitlin Clark, but it's a good thing for the sport. Like, I'm sorry. Caitlin Clark is the best prime for prime point guard in the history of the WNBA. If you put Caitlin Clark in any era, she would be the best point guard in that given year. I'm sorry, Sue Bird, you were a baller. The difference is that it was a traditional 1970s style point guard where your job was to dribble the ball to the floor and pass it to your bigs. Caitlin Clark can take over the game in every single aspect. Yeah, maybe not the best defender, but as far as in the offensive end, she is the greatest point guard in the history of the WNBA already, and that is not a crazy thing to take. Literally watch these people play. Watch every single one of them play. Watch Prime Sloot. Watch Prime Lindsay Whalen. Watch Prime Teacher Penachero. Watch Prime Sue Bird. Caitlin Clark is just better than all of them, and that's fine. There's a good chance Juju Watkins is going to be better than all the shooting guards that have been in the league. There's a chance for that. There's going to be bigs that are better than any big. Aja Wilson, prime for prime, is better than any big in the history of this league. And that's fine. It's fine to acknowledge when somebody comes in and is like, okay, yeah, they're just better than everybody else. You don't have to say, oh, but like, do you guys remember those Houston Comets teams that won 4 rings in a row with Cynthia Cooper, Tina Thompson, and Cheryl Swoops on that team? We need to talk about them more. No, we don't. Who the hell talks? Like, I'm sorry. Who the hell? It's the equivalent of saying, well, you know what? You know who we need to talk about more? Like, when we're talking about, like, basketball right now, you know, Anthony Edwards is great. Oh, man, this Wemby kid's unbelievable. But, you know, we need to talk more about the 1985-1986 Boston Celtics. Or even more so, it's like, we need to talk about those 83 76ers. They might have been the best team of all time. We need to talk more about those 83 76ers. Wemby? Nah. Moses Malone. That's who we need to talk about. You know, him missing and grabbing his own rebounds. We need to talk more about the original Angel Reese. Come on. It's just not, these are not basketball arguments. I'm sorry, it's not the way sport has been talked about. There's obviously a respect for players in the past. But, like, we got to just talk about the players now. The reality of this is that if you talk about the players now, you are criticized. If you meant to say that Angel Reese struggles with layups, you're called a racist. I'm sorry, she can't make layups. It's reality. It's reality. If you actually are critical about anyone's game, if you say anything other than Chelsea Gray is the greatest passer to ever play the sport of basketball, she's the point guard, she's better than Caitlin Clark even in the year 2024. And if you say anything other than that, if you point out the fact that Chelsea Gray can't run anymore, you're the problem. Like, if you point out the fact that, I don't know, just because Nalissa Smith was good as a rookie, she's been a liability for most of the season, apparently that's racist. Like, I'm sorry. Chelsea Gray does some flashy passes, but, like, her regression through no fault of her own, she got pick up bad injuries, was a big reason the Aces struggled this year. If you point out the fact that the Aces are no better with Age on the floor than with Age off the floor, it's not saying Age is not their best player on their team, she's not their most important player, but if you literally read out a stat, then there's something wrong with you. If you say Fee Collier is better than A'ja Wilson, apparently you're a racist. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't study the ancestry of players to know that apparently one of Nafisa Collier's parents is white. Like, I don't know. I don't care. She's a really good basketball player. Can we just talk about basketball? And the problem is that when you constantly bring up the people need to start talking about basketball, when people who try to talk about basketball are getting called every name under the sun for a basketball take, then there's a problem. We got to call that out too, Miss Elle Duncan.
That's what's been frustrating, you know? So yes, people are going to talk about it more, but oh my God, please just educate yourself so that you can have bad takes that involve basketball and not bad takes that send racism and misogyny into the timelines of these women. It's unfair.
I'm sorry, like literally, I could create, like, I'm not going to do this because I'm not a dickhead. I could create a brand new Twitter account, take a random picture, let me just go, 28-year-old man. I'm just going to type in 28-year-old man. And if I could take any of these pictures, you know what? This looks like somebody that that people will stereotype as a Caitlin Clark fan. Better looking guy than myself. Like, no, just your average 28-year-old. Let's take this picture, let's make an account, and let's start tweeting abuse at WNBA players. And suddenly it's now a Fever fan. Anyone can do that. And that's the problem, is like, and with the way these WNBA players are, they're searching their own names. They're clicking, they're interacting with hate posts. That's all you're going to see. That's the way Elon Musk's Twitter is. If you interact only with hate posts, you're going to see hate posts. Like, nothing's going to stop that. No basketball take is going to send that. I'm sorry. Saying Angel Reese is not even on the stratosphere of Caitlin Clark as a basketball player is probably going to cause some crazy person. It's probably going to cause the Dr. Philip Oliver Hulls. It's going to cause him to do something, to say something. But yeah, now we're going to be seeing the PRON bots that Diamond Shields was sharing because she shoved Diamond Shields. Diamond Shields clearly clicked cheap shot at Caitlin Clark. And I'm going to, by the way, just as an exercise, off the top of my head, for people being like, oh, you don't watch enough of this game, I'll name the starting five of every single team. Atlanta Dream, Jordan Canada, Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, Naz Hillman, Tiana Parker-Tyus played before she got injured, Tina Charles. Dallas Wings, you have got either Uzun or JC Sheldon, Urike, Satu, Natasha Howard, and Tiara McCowan. Chicago Sky, Lindsay Allen, Kennedy Carter, Michaela Onyewere, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso. Golden State Valkyries, not a team. The Connecticut Sun, Ty Harris or Marina Mabry at times. It was a bit weird at the end of the season. But Ty Harris, Dejanay Carrington, Dewana Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, Bree Jones. The Aces, point guard. There's only one point guard and she plays in Indiana. But Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, A'ja Wilson, Kia Stokes. Indiana Fever, obviously. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Nalissa Smith, Aaliyah Boston, and one of Lexi Hull, Christy Wallace, or Katie Lou Samuelson. The LA Sparks, I'm pretty sure, post-injuries, it was Odyssey, post-Olympics breaks, it was Odyssey Sims, the one, and Christopher Langerfield at the time played the one. Kian Nurse might have started the two, it might have been Steph Talbot either. Then Rakia Jackson, Diarca Hamby, and Azuri Stevens. New York Liberty, they're in the finals, obviously. Phoebich came in the playoffs, Lute had been starting during the year. Benai Delaney Hamilton, Sabrina Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, and Jonquel Jones. Minnesota Lynx, Courtney Williams, Kayla McBride, Bridget Carlton, Alana Smith, and Fee Collier, the Washington Mystics. I'm pretty sure when everyone was healthy, their starting five was Brittany Sykes, Carly Samuelson, Ariel Atkins, Shakira Austin, and Steph Dolson. They just had so many injuries and so many changes in the lineup. Sometimes, like Van Loo started at the start of the year, Ellie Edwards started at times, and then Emily Engsler started at the end of the year. The Phoenix Mercury started Tash Cloud, Diana Taurasi, Kat Copper, Beck Allen, and Brittany Griner. And then when Beck Allen went down, Sophie Cunningham came in, and the Seattle Storm started they started Skylar Diggins, Jewel Lloyd, Jordan Horston, Neko Umake, and Ezzy Magbagor. And then when Gabby Williams got up to speed, Gabby Williams came in for Jordan Horston. And I can guarantee you, I'm part of the quote-unquote problem people that Elle Duncan that will not talk about basketball. And I've watched every one of these teams play. I've reported on every one of these teams. If you take away every Caitlin Clark fever and drama video, I've still made more WNBA content. It's probably put more WNBA stuff into the YouTube sphere than any other person. And yeah, I can guarantee you. And that's the problem when you're talking about everyone. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna... The one good thing about the Elle Duncan podcast is that this dude right here, and to be fair, your one Holly as well. Holly made sure that as well that it was like when talking with the Christine Brennan situation that she just goes, well, Caitlin Clark got asked the exact same thing by another journalist, but they had no problem with him. It was just Christine Brennan, so it looked just like it was targeted at Christine Brennan. But no, I think it was because it was Caitlin Clark that was asked. They don't care if she gets asked dumb shit, but if Dejanay Carton does, it's a problem. And he basically said, and he was like, every single person in journalism, it's like Christine Brennan's a columnist. Every single journalist, every single person in the media has the same analytics that we do. We talk about Caitlin Clark, just like in basketball, we talk about LeBron. In football, we talk about the Cowboys, we talk about the Lakers. Because we have the analytics, we know how people watch. And the reality is that's the case. That is just the reality of it. People report on Caitlin Clark because Caitlin Clark gets more views. Whether you like Caitlin Clark, whether you're pro Caitlin Clark, whether you're anti Caitlin Clark. There's a reason why. If you're not getting views on Caitlin Clark, you're probably talking about Angel Reese, because Angel Reese gets more hits. I would love to talk more about Nafisa Collier, but if you want to be positive about Fee Collier, the only way to get any views is if you say she's better than Angel Wilson, because Angel Wilson is a draw. If you want to, and that's the problem, is whether it's like LeBron, the Lakers, in the WNBA, if you want clicks, you're talking about the Aces, you're talking about the Fever, or you're talking about the Sky. And that's the reality of it. And then when it comes to college, you're talking about Juju, you're talking about Paige, and then whoever comes up through. If there's any good freshmen, if that Duke girl who's like yamming on people starts yamming on people in college, that's going to be a conversation started too. But anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.